So, composer number 3 is Thomas Adès. Adès is a living British composer who takes a lot from Ligeti's music. He takes his use of texture even further and also translates it into particularly piano music, which I think is very unique, that you don't hear in a lot of other piano repertoire, as well as, you know, doing the same thing with a massive orchestra. Along with Ligeti, Adès is very influenced by Janacek, and a lot of his piano pieces create these sound worlds that we haven't really heard before on the instrument, something which is very hard to achieve when you consider how much repertoire exists for the piano. Some great examples are Darkness Visible, which is based on a song by the Elizabethan composer John Dowland called In Darkness Let Me Dwell. It's the most stunning thing. Adès kind of rips apart and fragments the Dowland song and puts it in the piano and really creates this atmosphere. And unless you knew that the Dowland was there and you knew what the Dowland sounded like, you wouldn't necessarily be able to hear it when listening to the Adès, which I think is really, really clever. Another couple of piano works that are really good to listen to by Adès are Traced Overhead and Still Sorrowing. Still Sorrowing is for prepared piano as opposed to just, you know, it's normal. And there's a strip of blue tack in the middle, which is why when you listen to it, you have this change of timbre to this kind of muted, almost bell-like kind of bong sounds within this kind of overall texture. As I mentioned earlier, this intrinsic use of texture is also apparent in his orchestral works. One in particular, which I think is really interesting and really cool, is Asila. So this is a nice way to kind of introduce it to the contemporary audience, even if it's, you know, to non-musicians. The third movement of Asila is actually inspired by techno. So Adès said when he wrote this, or before he wrote it, but he was kind of thinking about it, he was in, I think it was Los Angeles, and he was queuing to get into a club, and there's this kind of sound world where, you know, he's outside, there's this kind of rustle and bustle as he's waiting, but then you can kind of hear in the distance this kind of boom, 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 like this, you know, really, really loud clubbing music. And then you kind of get into the club, and obviously that's even louder, but there's also the kind of the hectic scene of people everywhere, they're dancing, they're chatting, and, you know, he's kind of creating that in this orchestral work. And you can really hear it, this kind of boom, 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 and then as soon as it comes in properly, it just kind of hits you. It's awesome. He's really recreated the kind of textural chaos that occurs when you enter such an establishment. Other works by him to listen to, orchestral ones, are Tevot Polaris and his Violin Concerto. Next on our list is a personal favourite of mine, Alfred Schnittke. He's also dead. Sorry, again, not that long ago in 1992, whatever. I know so many people who have been able to find a route into listening to the really hardcore contemporary classical music through Schnittke, and including myself, and I think he's a really, really good door opener into the world. He was half German, half Russian, and he still wrote incredibly dark music, as you could imagine, 20th century German, Russian, kind of difficult. So he was known for being a particularly depressing guy in person. However, his music, much like Ligeti, but I think in a more obvious way, is still incredibly humorous. It still has this really dark humour to it, which gives it a really interesting character that again makes it stand out. But on top of this, he was a great pioneer in what we call polystylism. So this kind of does what it says on the tin. Poly means many, stylism, style. So he's kind of fusing a lot of different influences in order to create his piece. These are the contemporary classical music of the day, but also Baroque music, which he was like mildly obsessed with, and then also jazz. You like jazz? A fantastic example of this isn't so much jazzy, but it does kind of have a tango in the middle. He liked tango. Is his Concerto Grosso No. 1. So you've got these kind of abstract sounds within, but then that's kind of juxtaposed, jigsawed really, with some very Baroque themes. And a really obvious way where he's kind of playing with these two sound worlds and styles is the keyboard player starts playing on a prepared piano. So unlike Adder's, this isn't prepared with blue tack, this is prepared with screws. So you put them in between the strings and they're kind of like sat on top. So this is my string there, boom, boom, that's the string. So every time you hit a string, it kind of goes, it's like boom, boom. Again, it's kind of bell-like, but it's not a muted bell pop kind of sound, if that makes any sense. And so playing this is then put next to playing the harpsichord. So as you listen to the Concerto Grosso, it starts on the prepared piano, harpsichord for the inner movements, and then prepared piano again at the end. Schnittke also wrote a lot of film music, and this is where you can hear his kind of influence from jazz a bit more. A particular favourite of mine is Clowns und Kinder, which is kind of creepy, but again, it's great. It's kind of his style, it's all kind of creepy. At the same time, it's really, really fun. The Commissioner's Suite is also a popular favourite of his kind of film works. Back in the day of kind of not like early film, but mid 20th century film, it was a good moneymaker for composers, and you didn't so much have the kind of, you know, here's your example of Mahler and Wagner, rip it off, and then as time goes on, rip off yourself, and then later rip off Hans Zimmer. That we've kind of got into today. They had a lot more freedom in the early days, which is why Schnittke's film music I think is quite nice, because he did just kind of write what he felt fit, which is what all film composers should have the opportunity to do. Sadly that's not the case. Gudnadottir had that opportunity, and as you can see, the results are incredible. It irritates me. So, our final composer for our 5 better composers, you should definitely check out, is none other than our own Richard Corsten. So Richard is alive, obviously, and he's written for some of the biggest orchestras you will ever see, along with so many other ensembles. It's great. Very versatile. He kind of adds to the textural theme that we've had running through with a couple of the composers here, but Richard also has this focus more on timbre and also rhythm, which comes from an interest in gamelan, which we looked at in the Debussy video. Again, if you don't know what gamelan is, go back and look at that. This can particularly be heard in his piece The Persistence of Memory, which is based on the Salvador Dali painting with the melting clocks. Richard says this piece is about a time in South India where he got ill and became quite delirious, so you've kind of got this whole memory thing, but also, you know, things are melting around you and it's a bit like, oh. And you can really hear that as well. Other pieces to listen to by Richard are Millennium Scenes. You can listen to the kind of whistle and drum sounds. It's supposed to be about riots and similar kind of protests taking place in the later years of the millennium. 7 States of Rain for violin and piano, which, like the Adès, kind of has this very unique sound world that you don't necessarily hear in a lot of violin and piano music. It's very different. Again, I urge you to check it out. And again, more prepared piano. And to choose something entirely different, Cradle Song, which is a carol for choir. It's been recorded several times by Cambridge and Oxford choirs, so yeah, plenty of opportunities to hear that. The great thing about PCYM is that we do have Richard there most weeks, so if you have any questions about his pieces, his career, inspirations, anything at all, then he is there. Do just kind of ask him, you know, when we're back. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to discuss anything with you, or maybe not, anything. All the pieces I've mentioned today are on Spotify, including all of the film soundtracks, so please, please do go and listen to them and explore a more realistic version of what contemporary classical music sounds like. And yes, I appreciate that a couple of my composers were slightly dead, sorry, even though they are kind of recently deceased. I still feel they're a better choice than the 2 set ones. There's more variety there. Again, Arvo Pärt and David Lang are very good choices, and I also encourage you to listen to their music as well. I appreciate they were trying to reach a much wider audience than I will be to a 9 of you who I know and teach, so I know that you're already kind of within this bubble. But you know, there's other music out there than pretty piano and string minimalism. I've also explained here a little bit more about what each composer's kind of deal is, and I think that's always a really good thing to kind of explore when you are coming to a kind of block with how much of the music you can take. It happens to everyone. You know, there are composers which I still find very difficult to listen to, and my ears were broken a very long time ago. These tend to be the super duper complicated pieces, and that doesn't necessarily mean like complicated to play, but complicated artistically in what they're trying to achieve and say. And you only really gain the understanding of these by listening, saying, okay, what are they trying to do? Why? How have they tried to achieve that? And you might just say, okay, well, I don't believe they achieved that. Whatever, fine. I'm not saying you have to like all of these pieces. Again, you're not exactly going to have a lot of these on your iPod, but it's good to at least be able to listen to them, appreciate it, understand it, and learn something from it, really. And I didn't feel I could learn anything, or you guys could even learn anything from a load of filmy minimalists. Thanks for watching. I will put a listening list up now. Again, Spotify, go listen. And see you next week.